Welcome, guys, to the first episode of this year of Ibrahim and Kai podcast. Today, we're going to have a very exciting topic and a very exciting guest, very good friend of mine, Haron Mohammed Yunus. Is that your full name?
Yes. Yeah. That is my full name. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, excited to be here.
Welcome to the show, Haron. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Haron, he's a concept artist from Kurdistan. And so I think it's a very interesting place that you're coming from, because I think a lot of people don't know what's going on in the art industry in Kurdistan. So we have a lot of questions going on today. And so let's start with a very basic question. Like how did you get into concept art, and do you have any like major inspiration growing up as an artist?
Yes. So it was definitely a journey because, as you're also aware of it, this industry, it's quite new. And, it majorly exists in these very developed countries. So the main industry is in the US. And then you have, branches in Europe and also, far Asia, like Japan, China, Korea. Right now, they're catching up. But I started as a traditional artist, actually. So in my mind, I wanted to become like Da Vinci and Picasso when I was a kid. So once I was done with middle school, then I attended this place called Institute of Fine Arts. So we have these institutes that you can attend instead of high school. So they're equivalent to high school, but they're specialized. So that's where I studied fundamentals of art for 5 years. And during that time, it was a time when I was also discovering myself, because art has been changing. There are always new movements coming by. So I was really into animation and video games ever since my childhood. So for some reason, I got the inspiration from animations that I was looking up to, or video games that I really liked, that maybe I could use the skills that I had as an artist, so drawing and painting, to actually work in an industry that I actually really enjoy and like. So that's when I thought that I wanted to become an animator, and that's how I met Kai in the university. So I joined a program of animation in Ankara, Turkey, because I wanted to become an animator at the time. But then I discovered that it's not animation as a field that I want to work on, but it is more design. So I'm really into design, like problem solving. And that's where I also, in that program, I understood what concept art is. So concept art basically is the visualization of text in a production. So a movie or a video game or an animated series. So everything that you see on the screen, starting from environments, props, characters, costumes, all these things have to first be designed by a concept art team in a production, so that later they can be produced by custom designers, by prop designers, by set designers. So basically, it is cheaper to start experimenting, with drawing, with the painting, and so it was really in line with what I already had as skills, and also in line with my interests. So I discovered that that's what I want to do, and from that point I started, collecting resources online and courses, and then applying my knowledge of fundamentals of arts to this new field of design.
Haron, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think there's a very interesting thing about Haron, is that you're actually very familiar. Not like, I don't know how much you know, but from what I know, like, you're very interested in the Japanese art culture. And
right, it has an inspiration.
A lot of inspiration I saw that you came from certain Japanese artists. If you would like to talk about it.
Yes, I think Ibrahim can also relate to this, because we grew up with a culture of anime. I remember we had a lot of these cartoon channels that were dubbing these anime series, and some of them were really inspirational. And that probably is been like a major part of my childhood, and naturally sometimes you gravitate toward these things that have been inspiring you. But one of the major inspirations for me was definitely Studio Ghibli. So there is Hayao Miyazaki that has a very beautiful style of animation. and really, really interesting stories that he creates. Very, very interesting worlds, and that definitely is one of the inspirations. Apart from that, there are other classical films, such as Ghost in the Shell, Akira. We have Perfect
Aren't we
Blue.
all inspired by Ghost in the Shell?
Definitely, definitely. I mean,
Or
it
Blade
is.
Runner.
It is on the same level in my side as Blade Runner, and
Yeah.
the classic Dune. So these are the very early cyberpunk. They created a genre basically. So I really enjoy the very authentic world that they have built. So you actually believe that such a dystopian world could exist in some form of the future. And yeah, that definitely was an inspiration.
I think a lot of people who started even drawing and painting were initially inspired by anime, right? I think the anime field have opened up a lot of like it has opened up a lot of people's eyes into like starting to draw, and because it has kind of inspired people in a way, because you see all these animes and you see these characters and you follow them and you watch them and then you get inspired by them, and you connect. Sometimes people connect with these characters, and now like that character gets stuck in your head, right? And you start drawing him, and from there you can move on into making your own characters. And so it's such an interesting thing. Yeah.
I kind of want to get back to a bit from where you grew up from, because like I honestly don't know a lot about Kurdistan. Like the thing that people over there learn. Obviously, you said you came from an art school and stuff, but besides art school, is there any other way, and or did you learn everything that you know from art school, or is there other resources for people over there to learn more about art? Is it, or maybe like the internet or something like that?
Yeah, so definitely internet is a major source for everybody, but there are ways for more. So what I studied, like the Fine Arts Institute, is actually a traditional art school. So they teach you how to become a painter, how to become a fine artist. So, but what it has in common with concept art or illustration or any other field of art, like draftsmanship, is that they teach you fundamentals of art. So they're the same fundamentals that you can apply to any other field, but then each of them has a different purpose. But in terms of resources, yes, there are art schools. There are also design schools. Like recently, they've been opening up. There are some film schools, or should I say more like departments of film in universities and other schools. There is theater, music. Yeah, yeah, and
So
also
they're pretty a lot of this art going on actually. So many, like, are they full of these? Do people really care about art over there, or is it like the school, they just want to open it just for?
I think they did come about from a place of interest, because these are quite old in a sense. Like where I studied, it actually like it was established. The institution was established in 1992, so it's quite old in a sense. But definitely, there is still a lot of awareness that still needs to be spread. But I'm seeing, like, I'm observing right now that there is more awareness. People are more interested in these fields. They are more appreciative of art and also art related industries. But not at the same level of say France or Belgium. So. But it's getting there, because right now, especially like in my generation and the generation that's following, they did grow up with the internet, so they are familiar with the process of filmmaking, with the process of video game. Because when I was a child, I thought that video games came from heaven. I had no idea that people made them. So it was something magical. But right now, you understand that these are people like us that are developing them, and more and more we are seeing people from our own region, that are making it in the industry, that have really like good positions in the industry, which does translate into some really, really strong inspiration. Because when you see somebody from your own region or your own country that is, in a place of importance in our industry, then you do get an understanding that it is possible for you as well to do that. It does lead people.
It gives you
That
permission,
actually
right?
kind of remind me
definitely.
of the episode with Agon, because Ibrahim, I don't know if you remember, like Agon, he said that when they had someone from Kosovo who made these short films and became famous internationally, then
Yeah,
the
a lot
people
of
over
people
there,
followed along. Yeah.
yeah,
It is really really effective because
Yeah.
it is something that talks to your reality, because we all have these kind of problems in my part of the world where we are really somehow far from what's going on in the industry. The industry doesn't really exist here, so we are somehow isolated. But right now, it's we have internet, we have connections, and when you see somebody that have actually made it, it means a lot. It really means something on a maybe subliminal way. It does affect the way you perceive the industry or what you are capable of.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think like the internet has democratized a lot of things, and one of them is like kind of like bridging the gap between countries that aren't quite close, like you mentioned, Haron, to the industry.
Exactly, yeah.
So like you watch this guy who like from your country, perhaps even your like neighbor who like decided to want to become an artist, and he was able to make it, and you get to know him, and then through the internet, in your country, and then you learn from him, and you're like, if that guy can do it, I can do it too.
Exactly, yeah.
And it kind of gives you this permission that
Yeah,
like
definitely.
somebody I know has done it, and so and encouragement at the same time.
In a way, you know it. You already know it. Okay, this is a different world. I can probably make it if I work hard. But when you see that, it does give you some solid evidence in a way. That okay, this is actually possible.
It's quite useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Then big props to those who actually made it on the first place, right?
Yeah,
Like,
man.
They had it the worst.
Before.
Exactly, they had it the most difficult. In a sense. Yeah.
I have a question, Haron, right? Because from what I know, right, concept art is basically you're kind of starting things from the scratch. You are building these characters, you're building these concepts and ideas, and you take them from your head and you put them on a piece of paper, right?
Yes.
And this is one of the early stages in like the creation process.
It's in the pre-production, basically.
Yeah. And I like a lot of people like so as a concept artist, your art is what gets eventually to be finalized, right?
It gets translated into other medium, yes.
Yeah. So I think this is such a hard job, man, because it requires so much creativity and so much inspiration for you to come up with these concepts from scratch, while the other people at the other stages, the animators, I'm not saying that they don't require a lot of creative energy for them to produce their work, but they kind of lean on your concept that you've drawn and that you've created from scratch. And so like, how do you find inspiration, and how do you kind of try to keep coming up with new ideas when like you have like drawn over and over and over and over?
Yeah, that's a really
Haroon, I'm sorry to interrupt. Like, and to add on to Ibrahim's question is like, what exactly is like the process of starting of concept art? Like, where do we even start? What's the procedure?
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I really enjoy talking about the process. So basically, what concept art is, as Ibrahim said, is that let's say you have a production of a film or a video game, and then you have the script, you have an idea of what you want to do. So concept art come in very early on the process. It's somehow like the blue sky phase, was what we call it. So you come up with ideas, sometimes even before the script. Concept art come in to generate ideas to inspire then the writers to come up with a story. But usually it's afterwards. So they have a script, and then they have characters, locations, props, vehicles. Sometimes in sci-fi productions, you have machinery. You have sometimes creature design, and so all these things are what concept arts have to come up with. But usually the process starts like this. So let's say we have a character, and we know how old the character is, where they live, what is their role in the story, where they come from. So the story has to inform the design, because at the end of the day, everything that we do on a production, on a film or a video game, has to serve the story. Everything has to be based on the story. It has to serve a purpose in this production. And so that you start developing sketches. So we come up with a variety of options for the art director to choose. So the art director will say, okay, let's say these three options are close to what we are looking for. Why not mix them? Or why not change this or change that? So basically we provide options, and then we give feedback, and then we narrow down, and then we get feedback, and then we narrow down until we find the final design of the character or the environment of the prop. In terms of inspiration, I think one needs to be really, really curious, because we have to always somehow ground our designs in real life. The designs have to be familiar. Everything that you see, even in the most fantastic settings, fantasy settings, sci-fi's, they are still familiar. They have to be recognizable. So, in a sense,
what do you mean by recognizable?
You have to understand, like when you see a spaceship, we have never seen spaceships, right?
Yeah.
We don't have like the spaceships in terms of what we see in Star Wars or in Blade Runner, right? But when you see one, you know what it does. You know what its purpose is, even though we've never seen real spaceships, because they are familiar, because they look like planes, because they look like other vehicles that we're familiar with, because they have shapes of insects or animals that we are familiar with. It's all somehow subconscious, but you cannot create something that is 100% random and expect the audience to understand what it is, because at the end of the day, everything is grounded. Even when you see an alien in a film, they are still based on real life creatures or insects or animals that we as humans can relate to. It's a very interesting process. And because of that, it is really, really important to be curious, to get into these topics, to study about different aspects, to study like science, technology, to be aware of what's going on in the world, because all that can then inform your designs. And I find that quite helpful, because Kai, you probably know, I really like, there are other things that I personally am interested in, especially like, let's say, history. I really like history. And my curiosity in that subject matter a lot of time informs my design. So when I'm designing, let's say a fantasy warrior, then I have in my hand, I had a visual library of like Roman shields, of let's say Greek shields. I have like weaponry in my mind. I know somehow what that is, but also we always benefit from references. So I have a really like a big library of references from different cultures, architectures, animals, creatures, all kind of thing that I could use or borrow elements from to design a new character or a new environment. So yes, in a sense, we borrow from the natural world. We borrow from our existing cultures, and then mix them, and then
I do feel like
bit.
When you're studying all, because I know Haron, he loved history. Like since I met him, he's very fond of history. And when I saw your concept art, like the things that you did before, you were always able to explain the purpose of everything on your character. Like for example, I remember you designed this bug, like an insect who's like a warrior or something like that. Yeah, and then you could always tell like what weapon he was using and why is this weapon like this. Oh, this weapon is from like during the 80s or 90s or something like that. And so I feel like the reason why you say you have to be curious and really do this research is because everything has to have a meaning. Otherwise, people don't get curious about it. Because if everything is meaningless, why should I care about it, right? Like, and maybe if people can see something that, like, even it's so weird to see an insect dressing like a World War II soldier, but because there are a lot of things that you know about that they're wearing, or the gun that they were using or something like that, you can relate to reality, and that's why you would care about it. That's how I that's how I see it.
Is the illusion of realism. You're trying to pretend that this could exist. And in order to do that, you actually have to believe that. You actually have to treat it as if it were real. And I think that's where that actually comes into play. That knowledge or that research you've done. So if you're doing like especially like a period piece, then everything has to be accurate. To that period, to the time. So yeah, that is 100% correct. I mean, you look at these kind of productions that we have seen. One that I really, really like, one of the designs is H.R. Giger's Alien from Alien, the movie. it is basically a mix of insects and human, and also some feline animals like panthers and cats. But then he mixed them in a way that created this terrifying yet beautiful creature that we actually forget that is it's made up. You could believe that this could exist on another planet, and that I think is the peak of design. It's really when you design something that the consumer forgets that this has been made to entertain them, and they actually believe it for a minute, and that I think is quite impressive.
Everything has to come from somewhere, I guess, right? And
Definitely, yeah.
like all the ideas that you used, I think that you have to include ideas that we have been programmed to believe. So like that's where history comes in, right? Because we have like it's something like we have seen it in the past. Our subconscious have seen it, but we haven't been able to like kind of recall it, right? And you use these concepts and
you don't consciously know what it is, but you feel it. So it is definitely as you said, is because one of the very important elements for any character or creature designer is anatomy, to really understand. Why that is because when you're designing an alien or a creature, a fantasy, a dragon, when the anatomy is informed by real life anatomy, then you could actually believe that, okay, this could function, this could exist. It has the same, it has very similar like skeletal structure. It has a muscle system. It has a skin that informs its environment. So let's say a creature that lives in the snow is different from a creature that lives in a volcanic on a volcanic planet or a warm climate. So again, that's the knowledge or the research, informing the design, and hence, making it believable, making it plausible, authentic in a way.
It kind of helped the people to get into the story also, because like
it's world building.
It's basically like a fluid. What's it called? Like it just helps people. Like you said, there's like this subconscious thing that goes into you, right? So sometimes when you see the things that you're familiar with, then there's you don't need more explanation on what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you could right? Immediately understand what if it is dangerous, if it's friendly, if it is majestic, if it's huge, if it's small. You can immediately understand that just by looking at it, and that's actually
it's a form of storytelling. Then it's basically a form of storytelling.
It is definitely. When I'm designing my characters, I try to imagine, even if it's not in the script, even if the director or if the writer didn't specify some things on the costume of this character, the costume still needs to convey to the viewer who this person is. The type of clothes they're wearing, why they're wearing it, the type of accessories, the type of, maybe they have a special item that they have with them. Why do they have that? Where does it come from? Maybe it's a gift from their mother or their father or whatever in the story. So even if it's not in the script, you can still imagine where these things come from, because if you're just adding stuff for the sake of adding them, then you just have a clutter. You just have a noise of a lot of stuff put together. But when you have a purpose, then there is a harmony. Everything is connected. Everything is connected to who the character is or their background. So again, it is a form of storytelling, because these are at the end designs that will be put in a story. But then the custom has its own story. The character has its own story. His hair has its own story. So again, these all add up to creating a stronger narrative.
It's so interesting, man. Like it feels like all art forms are combined. They come together. This like reminds me of, for instance, cinematography. Like every prop, every costume, every element that you have in the frame has to tell a story about the character,
exactly,
the design, the place, the location, the history of the place. And it's just kind of like very similar concepts applied into concept art itself. Yep. Another form of art.
I'm really curious though, when like you said, concept artists, because of the nature of this field, you can practically get into any industry in a way. Like you said, you can get into like gaming, you can get into film, animation, right? But
even advertisements. Yeah.
Oh, all right. And but the thing is, like, I'm so curious. Do you think there's one that is more complicated or harder than another? Let's say animation versus the film industry or versus game. Is there any other, like I see it the same. I see it's all just like concept art, but is there a different way of entering the work? Like, is there a different way of starting the work depending on the industry?
They are definitely similar, in a sense that, it is the same process in a way, but I think what makes them all different is the purpose, or also the style. So a film is different than a video game in a sense that in a film you have shots, you have very fixed shots. That's a shot, that's what's going to appear in the shot, and that's what we need to see. In a video game, it's a little different because you're put into a world that you can explore. You can view all angles. You can walk around the building and see all the angles. So in that sense, it is a bit different, but as in terms of process, it is still the same thing. You still have characters, you still have environments, you still have vehicles, and so on. For animation, the style can be different because, as you're familiar with companies like DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar, these have very specific style. So in order for a concept artist or a visual development artist, as is the term in the animation industry, what they call concept artist is like visual development. It is quite different. You have to be really, really familiar with the style of the company because they have a specific one and you need to follow the guidelines that they have. That probably is the major difference. Like I couldn't work for any of those companies right now because my style is more catered toward video games and probably also suitable for films because they both in most production they both follow like more realistic styles. But yeah, I don't know if one of them is more complicated than the other. Yeah.
So they look at your interests as well, right? Like so, like when it comes to Disney, DreamWorld, and Pixar, like your style as a concept artist has to be more of animation leaned. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. So like, okay, so since we have moved into like talking about like your work, I'm actually curious because I want to know like what are you doing right now? Like, are you freelancing? Are you like working? And like, how has it been? And how's work going, man?
It's quite interesting. I am freelancing because right now I'm home. I'm back in Kurdistan, but also I'm working on a personal illustrated book. So again, back to the subject of curiosity. As a child, also as a teenager, I was really, really interested in mythology and in fantasy, and I was always familiar with the Egyptian mythology, with Greek mythology, with Roman mythology, with Scandinavian mythology, and I live in Mesopotamia, basically, right? It is the most ancient civilization on Earth, and I did not know any of our mythical beings. I didn't know like the old gods or the old creatures, and then I wondered why. It's because nobody's depicted them.
Yeah,
I've seen Thor 1,000 times in different productions, but I've never seen my own mythical beings. So I had this idea in the back of my mind that I would like to interpret some of these creatures that have never been interpreted visually, like from our folklore or from our ancient civilizations, into like a modern illustration or something that I could do personally because on my own I cannot do a whole video game or something, but I could illustrate them. I could design them. And then I came across a fund that they were willing to fund some projects. It is a German institute called Goethe. So they're active here in Kurdistan, also in the rest of Iraq, and they fund some projects that they find interesting. And so I applied to this fund, and I got accepted. And right now I'm working on developing this book. So it's called Mythical Beings of Mesopotamia, and it's going to be a collection of 12 characters that I'm illustrating. I've done most of the work already. It's almost in the final stages. And each of these creatures is accompanied by text that talks about its origins, where it came from, which kind of stories it appeared in, and also some stories in which they appear. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years, for the most part. And on the side, I've also been freelancing. But I'm focusing on that right now. Hopefully, I can get it done in the very near future.
And where can we see it once it's done?
Sorry?
Where can we see it once it's done? Like, is there anywhere that we can find works?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm definitely gonna publish the works on my portfolio as well. But right now I do have an Instagram page dedicated to the books on which I'm planning to update. But as for now, the book is local, so I don't have an international.
What's the name of your Instagram page for those who are curious if they want to check it out?
It's called mythical_beings. So mythical beings.
All right.
So there you have it, guys.
They can go check it out.
Yeah. That's So I do hope that some in the future it could be available internationally, because I do have friends and other people that are asking if it will be available internationally. As for now, I don't think so. Like the first phase, probably not. But then who knows? Maybe in the future. I actually have I did a test print here.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But the final book will look nothing like this. I have other plans. But
have you posted some of them on your Instagram, or is it?
I have actually. Yeah.
So basically, it's like the image, and at the bottom is like the description of what it is.
There will be chapters. So you see, there's like some of the creatures here.
Okay, for those who cannot see, like Haron is showing us how the book.
I forgot.
He's showing us amazing things.
No problem. But we can. You guys can check it out on his.
You have like a character
Instagram.
here, and then on the other pages there are descriptions of the characters in 3 languages actually, like English, Kurdish, and Arabic.
Oh, that's nice, man.
Yeah. So this is what I've been working on, but it's quite exciting because it is something from my own culture, so I am familiar with, and I think you guys can also relate. Is the things that we can express the best are the things that we are familiar with, things that we know the best.
Yeah, bro, I can't draw for shit.
Yeah, but you can produce.
You just reminded me how terrible I am drawing. I'm one of those guys who draws the stick figures.
Almost anybody can draw. It really is just a matter of
I
putting
understand.
pen
Yeah,
to
I think it's
paper,
practice.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys not do storyboards though for your own films, or do you get other people to do it for you?
Okay, I want to hear Kai's answer, and then
because I think I've seen Kai's storyboards. I think.
Yeah, I did actually upload it on my Instagram.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, I draw. Like the thing is, I just accept the fact that I cannot draw, but the thing is, people can understand it. So
exactly.
I think. For me, the purpose of me knowing how to draw is to get people to understand what I want to say. That's all.
That's what the purpose is. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. What about
Ibrahim? Yeah. So for me, I remember when I was in college, we were working on this short film, and we wanted to storyboard, right? But every time we would do it, it would just like fucking suck, man. Yeah. And so eventually, like we were like 2 people, and then eventually we had this idea that. Actually, why don't we do it in 3D, right? And so I also had some knowledge in 3D, and Kai knows about this, And my friend also had some knowledge in 3D, and so that's what we did. We just opened Blender and we storyboarded the whole film in Blender, right? We brought amazing. A character. Yeah, we didn't even have to model. We just brought the character. We rigged the character and we animated it to the moves, and then it looked amazing. And so since that moment, I've been doing everything in 3D. And yeah, also there's this game called Cine Tracer. Maybe Kai knows about it. You guys know about this. Yeah. It's a game on Steam, and in the game, it's a 3D game. In the game, it's kind of like GTA, and in the game you are the director. So you have a camera. You can change your camera. Wow. You can change your depth of field. You can add cars, and you can walk. You can do whatever you want.
That's so cool.
And you can have a shot list. It's fucking amazing, man. I use it for my short film, and yeah, since that I've been always. Storyboarding with 3D, and there are tools that help you do that, and so there's always a way, I guess.
I can imagine that would be a very useful tool for filmmakers, to have your own like playground that you could just put everything there.
It's game changing, like, I think.
Yeah. So the purpose of storyboard is to convey, shots. So if you can do that, doesn't really matter if it's pretty drawings, or if it's 3D or if it's 2D, doesn't really matter. So I actually I really enjoyed looking at your storyboard because I could see how they were translated into the final shot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can compare it, right? You can compare the thought process.
I have done storyboards on a few occasions. I really like it. I like the cinematography aspect of things as well. So I like imagining shots. So sometimes I take gigs of storyboard as well.
Yeah, me and Haron actually worked on short films before, and I saw what you did. Yeah.
Have I seen it? Have I watched it?
Oh, I don't think I've shown you.
They're really bad. They're really like
school stuff. It was a very interesting concept. It was a 1984 short scene of it.
Interpretation of it, yeah.
That's
nice. Agon acted it, by the way.
Yeah, but we did almost everything in our power to produce a good production. We went and we brought some like medical tools from around. We tried to design the set, and the setting was really cool. Like the basement, the empty basement was very
actually cool. Ibrahim, I'll show it to you after the podcast because I think
do show
it's pretty interesting. Nice. It's like we had not a lot of resource, and Haron technically just pulled out everything. Like he just get as much resource as he can get to make the scene actually felt like what it were to be like if it was doing 1984, and everything seemed pretty nice. So I actually I'm afraid we're gonna have to end the podcast soon because we don't have a lot of time left. But me and Ibrahim, we actually still have a lot of questions to ask about it. So hopefully we can do another episode in the future again.
Yeah, man.
And maybe we can talk about more stuff.
I really like this. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It's been a really fun episode, man. I think.
And thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed this, and it's also was very nice meeting you, Ibrahim.
Nice to meet you, bro, and thank you so much for coming. I highly appreciate it.
Good luck on the
I'm always down
podcast
to
in
meet
the
new
future.
people. Yeah, we'll definitely catch you in the future.